Pull up a cup of coffee and let's get this party started.
We're the uplines you didn't know you needed, but now you have.
This is the podcast for women who are building a direct sales business but want to do it the right way.
Melanie has a decade of experience in direct sales. She's earned the top in industry 4 years in a row and has grown a multi-million-dollar organization. She gives a no BS approach to leadership, recruitment, and organization.
And my bestie Katie has you covered with the rest. From the relationships, the do's and don'ts of branding, her content has been viewed by millions. She doesn't just talk the talk, but she teaches people how to create an intentional brand too.
All right, let's get this party started. Well, hey everyone, it is Katie and Melanie, and Millie, the pup, is here today as well with another episode of the Direct Sales Done Right podcast. And today we're talking about your favorite topic, which is productivity. We're going to be giving you 5 tips to be more productive in 2023. And one thing about Melanie and I is we never give fluff. We shoot you straight. We're going to give you some tips that, when applied, can make a huge difference in not just your business, but also your priorities, how you schedule your day, and even the way you look at your business. So we're going to be diving into that today. But before we do, we are actually going to read to you a review of the week. Now, how we get seen and how we get the word out about doing direct sales the right way is when people leave reviews. It helps us be seen. It helps us just raise the volume a little bit on this incredible podcast community. So today we have from KF George 721. I have just found your podcast and I'm thrilled that you are sharing experiences in a concise and practical manner. I am a full-time teacher. I love it. Considering a career in network marketing, and it seems as if your podcast will guide me along the way. Well, I can tell you from experience that you can absolutely have a full-time career in network marketing. I'm living proof for sure. And Mel, why don't you tell us about the listener of the week from social media?
All right. So when you tag us on social media, so screenshot today's podcast episode, tag us on Instagram at Chic Influencer. Tell us what your biggest takeaway from the podcast episode was. We'll feature you on our platform, and you might be one of the lucky winners that we actually choose as the listener of the week. And we give you a private coaching session online. So Megan Haynes, you are listener of the week. And if you DM us at Chic Influencer, we will do a little back and forth conversation with you through DMs and just do a little bit of a private coaching session.
Love it.
Okay.
All right. So this question, we actually did a social media poll, and I giggle about this because the response was just, it was mind-blowing, but I also went, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So the question we asked on social media was, would you rather fold laundry or send invites? And right now, you can probably take a guess what the answer was, but I don't know if they'll get it quite right. So the answer was 19% of you said you would rather send invites, and 81% of you would rather fold the laundry. Crazy. Then we asked how many of you would rather connect with new people or unload the dishwasher. That was a 50-50. That was right down the middle. Maybe because unloading the dishwasher, it's a little easier. I don't know. And then 60% of you would rather create a trending reel, while 40% of you said you would go live on social media. But I want to talk about that first one where we talk about those invites, and the 81% said they'd rather fold laundry. Why do you think that is?
Well, because it's uncomfortable to send invites. Although I feel like laundry is incredibly uncomfortable. I actually put that off way longer than I ever.
I have 3 in my bedroom right now, and I don't think the one load made it from the washer to the dryer.
Yeah. Oh boy.
I actually just thought of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's procrastination is really what it is.
Yeah.
And when you're saying, number one, I'd rather fold the laundry than send the invites, that's really you saying, invites make me uncomfortable. Invites are something that I know I should do, but I'm going to avoid it because it is something I'm not good at yet. It is something where I'm fearful that I might say the wrong thing. I may get rejected. Somebody might come back to me with a negative response that might hurt my feelings. And so the way that we really protect ourselves is by busying ourselves with other things. Once I get the laundry done, once I unload the dishwasher, then I will work on my business. And we're talking about productivity today. And we're almost the entire way through January. At the time that this podcast is actually airing, you are almost at the end of the month. And so you have 3 weeks of data to really say, where have I made progress on my way to my goals? And this is a good point of reflection for you to start to uncover. Have you been that person that's folding the laundry, unloading the dishwasher, making yourself busy doing other things, but you really have a strong desire to build your business? And so today we really want to talk about, because again, like we said earlier in the month, about knowledge is power, right? In a previous episode, we just talked about
200.
It was episode 200. Yeah. So go back and listen to episode 200. We talk about knowledge is power. And so we wanted to open up with those poll questions because we wanted you to think. We wanted you to start to say, do I do that? Do I actually see invites on my tracker and then I go unload the dishwasher? Do I see connect with people and I go do, you know, another load of laundry? And does it get to the end of the day and you say to yourself, oh, you know, I just was too busy today. I didn't get time. And so it never gets done, but yet you don't understand why your business isn't moving forward.
Right. And for me, I'll just be honest with you, it was never the invite. It was the follow-up.
Interesting.
I was so afraid of hearing no or screwing up the conversation or saying something that I was afraid to close the sale. Almost. So acknowledging too that it might not be the invite, but it might be something else that you either avoid or you don't like or you don't want to do. Is a big part of what might be preventing you from actually being productive. It's that awareness piece. So
I almost want to give like a random quick tip in there. When you get afraid of the follow-up, and I don't know if this will help anybody that's listening, but when I used to do the follow-ups, I used to think to myself, no matter what, I'm going to smile as I'm doing it. And then as I'm typing my response, I would always think to myself, my goal is always to let them know that the door is open. So if somebody gave me a flat out no, I was like, no worries. If now is not a good time, I want you to know the door is always open. If you ever need help on this or that, or have questions like, I love what I do, please come back around and send me a message. And that people always used to be like, well, thank you, or absolutely. So if you just like smile while you're doing it and you always say, I'm going to leave the door open for a future conversation, like it kind of changes it. And actually people's guard go down because they're like, oh, she just wasn't in it for the sale. Random fact. That's just random.
I love
That's
it.
really
and I also
for me.
picture you doing it with a lot of exclamation points.
100%.
And for some reason, I pictured that Bruno Mars music video where he's like, I'm going to leave the door open. I actually thought about that too. So I love that tip. That would have been really great when I was so afraid of the follow-ups very early on in my business. But for you listening, we're going to dive right into our 5 productivity tips. And number 1, we're going to go straight to the source. We're going to talk about going back to that vision that you cast at the beginning of the year or the one you were talking about in December. And really, when you aren't doing the work, it could be that the vision you cast for yourself, it's just actually not motivating you. So it might be that you don't want it bad enough, but chances are the vision you cast for yourself is what you actually don't want bad enough. Or maybe you honestly, you don't know exactly where to start. So one thing that we actually talked about, it was this week, it was early on, is this concept of the perfectionist trap. And we actually called our community out, and the chat bar in the community was absolutely blowing up. Do you remember this?
I do. Yes, I do remember this.
And we talked about like how many of you actually go into like paralyzation, like you actually get paralyzed with what you need to do, or how many of you go, all right, I just need to learn one more tip. I just need to listen to one more training before you actually take action. And when you start to realize there's a trend to that you actually aren't just diving into the work because you're overthinking the work, or you're waiting for the perfect Monday or the perfect hour or the perfect moment when life is just, the stars are aligned, life is perfect, then you can work your business. You're fooling yourself because that never does exist. And we want to just kind of clarify that early on in our direct sales business, there was no perfection at all. It was actually very messy. I know that for me, I didn't have a cell phone I actually didn't have a cell phone at the time, which is crazy to think about. I think it was like a Nokia. It might have been a Nokia.
Did you have a flip phone or where it slid down?
It was a pink like flip phone, and I just randomly
with an antenna.
Yeah, it sure did have one too. So there was no social media like we were doing then, and I had an old big like very dinosaur sort of laptop. And the social media side of it wasn't perfect. It was just Facebook. So I would have to upload something to my computer and then I would upload it to Facebook. So it was like a whole process of imperfection. And then I know that for me, I didn't have anyone helping me really at home. I was the one in charge of dinner. My husband was working full time at the time. We had our son, Nick, who was very little, who was in daycare, and we would come home and there were dishes to do. There was clothes to fold. There was a house to clean. And then by the end of the night, as pooped as I was like, all right, I have 1 hour. I need to go to work because I'm going to fall asleep if I don't. And I won't say that I did it in the healthiest manner. There was usually a shot of caffeine or something that went into play there. But in the early days, I couldn't work under perfect condition. I just couldn't. I had to work with what I had, and you have to too. You have to work with what you have.
You do. You do. And we will say it all the time, imperfect action over perfect inaction. And again, we'll never have enough hours to get all the things done. Well, the post, we could rewrite it a million times, but there just comes a point where you say, I just need to get it done because the vision of where I'm going is so crystal clear that I know that the messy action is how I get there. And if this concept of being perfect and perfection really does paralyze you, one thing that has helped us as we have been implementing projects is if you have a big project that you want to implement and you say, oh my gosh, this is a big undertaking. For example, if you want to start an Instagram account or you want to create a free group where you can start inviting people in that might be interested in your products, get out a Google Doc and literally start with the project at the top, the end date, when you want it to go live, and then unpack the project. And then we like to just go into our calendars, our time blockers, and start to block off time to work on the project and then deadlines for the pieces. And then you can start to chip away at a project. And when you break it down, it's so much less overwhelming to just say, I'm only going to focus on this piece, which is kind of like your tracker too. When you look at your tracker, you might get overwhelmed by all the things you have to do in a day. Why not just say, all right, I've got 20 minutes. What off this tracker can I do in the next 20 minutes? And then you start looking at it in these smaller pieces that over time add up to the bigger picture. Yeah.
All right. So small actions daily. That is going to be a huge part of it. Imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. Let's talk about number 2, which is, of course, Eating That Frog.
All right. So Eat That Frog is a book by Brian Tracy that if you have not read, I would highly encourage you to snag that on Amazon or Audible. It was one of the first books that you and I read. Do you know that I gave, this is random fact of the day, why I remember these things. I gave my copy of Eat That Frog to a gentleman that signed up on your team. I don't remember who he is, but I was at your kitchen table and I was like, you need to read this book. And I gave it to him. I gave him my copy of Eat That Frog.
Do you want me to get you a new copy?
No, you don't.
You're harboring these hard feelings for
It's so weird that I remember that.
Later.
But I keep thinking I should rebuy the book. But it was one of the first books, but also really an impactful book because, and the reason it was impactful was the story for me. I would get through my entire day and I am the kind of person that is not creative or productive in the evenings. I've extended myself throughout the day. I'm tired. And by the time I get to 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I don't want to do anything other than maybe mundane things like a check-in or, answering emails, sorting a folder. But I used to put off sending my invites. And what would happen is it would be really painful to at 9 o'clock at night try to figure out who to invite and what to say. And so I would always say to myself, well, you have a choice. You can either put it off till tomorrow. And then I knew because I was reading personal development that, you need to do things consistently. Your daily actions compound over time. And I hated that feeling of getting to the end of the night and having those invites as the last thing I needed to do and wanting to be really present when I was sending them. And so I started to say, well, I'm making myself do them. I'm not going to bed until I send those invites. And I didn't like that feeling either because it was cutting into my sleep. So as I was reading Eat That Frog, I was like, it's my invites. I hate doing them. So I am going to do them first thing in the morning. And also that allowed me not to let the busyness of the day get the best of me, right? Like I knew that that was one of the most important things. And maybe social media is your frog, but everybody has a frog. It's an action step that you know is important to your business, but yet you keep avoiding it. So I want to encourage you to switch it around. Make it whenever you do your business, that's the first business task that you do.
Yeah. So the first step is identifying what you avoid and being real with yourself about that. For me, it wasn't so much the invite as it was the follow-up. I remember looking at those emails and getting so scared. What if I say the wrong thing? That was always the first frog that I knew I needed to eat. So tip number 2, of course, is eat your frog first. Well, tip number 3 is something that we talk about all the time here at Chic Influencer. It's time block your week. And if you're not familiar with how time blocking works, we have a great resource. We'll make sure that we put it into the show notes. It's called the Time Blocker. It's just something that we both have been using for probably close to 3 years. I bet you it's been like about 3 years that we've been using this. And basically what we do with a time blocker is we look at our week at a glance. So we take an entire week and we plug in according to priority. So the first thing that you always put into your time blocker are the things that give you joy. It might be a dinner with your husband. It could be heading over to the hockey game. It could be hanging out with your girlfriends. But that is really untouchable time. Right. And then the second thing you put in is your life priorities. So this could be heading to practice. It could be when you have pickup or drop off, or you are, babysitting the neighbor's kids, or something where you really can't work in that pocket and you want to be very respectful of that pocket. And I want to emphasize this too, because one thing that, Melanie has talked about, that I talk about, is early on in our business, it was really just like picking up the phone whenever we had a spare minute. It was sending out the email whenever we could get to it. And what that actually did was it created this rift between our spouses and ourselves. And then it also kind of made us sort of feeling like we're always reactive to our business versus proactive to our business. And so if you find yourself really working in the pockets of your time, but your pockets are all the time, that's probably a problem. It's probably something that you really want to be aware of. And then when you're time blocking, you put in what are the essentials of your business and when are you going to get them done. And so the next step of time blocking is really saying, all right, this is when I'm working my business, but you're remembering, okay, when am I eating the frog? Yeah. What time of the day? Because that has to come first, because that's the thing that I will most likely put off. Yeah. Then you might have a team. And so you want to say, okay, what is the time that I'm going to be working on my personal business? That's my sales, my customers, my personal content. And then when am I going to be putting focus into my team? And then you look at your week at a glance and you start to go, well, I actually am giving myself ample time to work my business, and I still have a lot of white space to do what I want with it, whether that's reading fiction, or that's, spending more time with your kids, or enjoying a really slow cooked dinner versus a really rushed one on the go, or being able to be the one that does the hockey practice runs versus your husband. So all of those things, when it comes to time blocking, is you taking control of your calendar versus your calendar having control over you. So time blocking is really tip number 3.
That is. And it's so good. And tip number 4 goes right into that, because, we show up on our Monday morning and we've got our time blocker. We've spent the time to really look at what our pockets are, what our personal life looks like, and everything's in one place. And guess what happens? We get a phone call that, one of the kids is sick and we need to go. Like, there are going to be distractions. There are going to be things that pop up. There are going to be emergencies in your life that we can't avoid. And so when you have a plan, you have to be flexible. We always say you're flexible in your approach, but you're fixed in the goal. So yes, sometimes you have to just understand that it's not going to go exactly as you laid it out. And that's okay, which is why I do things first thing in the morning, usually sometimes before the rest of the world wakes up. I will try to do some of those most important activities because you just never know what the day is going to bring when you're running 2 businesses and raising kids and have a family, right? And so, eliminating distractions is the 4th thing that we want to talk about today. And for me, eliminating distractions has been a couple of things, and we'll share some of the ways we've eliminated those throughout the years. And a simple one, and if you're new, to using social media, maybe you're the kind of person that doesn't turn off your notifications. Maybe you have Instagram notifications coming in anytime somebody messages you, likes or comments on a post that you have, follows you. Maybe on Facebook, you get a notification when somebody posts in a group, follows you, sends you a message. You might have email notifications turned on and text messages turned on. And that creates a lot of incoming feedback on a minute by minute basis. And so what happens is, I always say, use this example. When I was early on in my business, I'd be on my desktop typing a Facebook post, and then a message would pop up from, let's just say, Katie, and she needed something. And I would go, oh, let me go over here and find this file. I'd go find that for Katie. I'd give it back, send her the message. And then I would go, oh, where was I at in that post? I'd have to kind of get myself refocused again. And it would take me twice as long to write a post. So what I started to do was hide all the notifications. I would turn off them on my phone, on my desktop. I would make everything silent. And then I would really focus on the task at hand. If I'm writing a post, I'm just writing a post. If I'm answering messages, I'm going through the inbox and answering the messages. And I started to find these ways to eliminate distractions by minimizing notifications. And also that played into my personal life. The story I've shared many times is I would be sitting on the floor with Landon and Bryce, and we'd be building puzzles or, driving our little, Matchbox cars across the floor. And I would get a ding and notification on my phone. I'd pick it up and, oh, it's somebody that wants to buy a product from me. And my kids would be like, Mom, are you paying attention? Mom, what are you doing? Mom, you're not even. And so that guilt, that mom guilt, started to come in real fast. And so instead of having those notifications pop up, I turned it off. And then when I was present with my kids, I was present with my kids. And so this can work in both your professional and personal life as well. So we need to minimize our distractions. Yeah. So it might be opening one window at a time. It might be turning off the notifications. It might be using the newest iPhone feature, which is do not disturb in work mode. I know you probably see it a lot of times. You see the little moon, because I do that when I'm in a zone and I want to focus. Or sometimes I do it like literally in the evenings when I just want to be really present in conversation, with my family too. So what are some of the ways maybe that are unique and different?
I think you touched on a lot of those, but it does go into number 5. Okay. So with number 5, our tip is to really gut check daily. Okay. And I want to go back to everything that Melanie said. It's not that you just apply these things and life is all rainbows and butterflies. It really is a constant realignment. So for example, one of the things that I am very protective of is my boundaries, meaning when I say yes to things, when I am responding to people, when I am answering emails, because I know that the way I show up for my business also helps people figure out how they need to show up for their business, because I'm the leader, I'm the mentor, I'm the professional. So if you are a leader in the industry or you have a downline and they see you working 24/7 and not setting boundaries, and they think, wow, this is what I need to do to be successful, how is that negatively impacting them? Sure, they might hit goals, they might be working harder, but are they doing it in a healthy way? And so I find myself constantly gut checking. I know that for me, my hard boundaries of work where I am present to clients is really like that 8 to 4, 9 to 5 window. Outside of that, it better be that something's on fire or there's a huge problem, because you probably won't hear from me professionally. Likewise, I would always encourage you to set those boundaries for your social media. Social media, whether you're scrolling or you're showing up, if you're never turning it off, you're not giving yourself any white space to actually be creative, because you're consuming so much of it. Sure. So I really encourage you to leave white space. But number 5 is really just gut checking yourself and saying, what are my priorities like? How is my time blocking going? Am I really doing the actions that I know are going to move the needle forward? And am I setting those healthy boundaries and respecting them so that other people will begin to respect them too?
Yeah. And as you go through each week and each month of your business, as you're going through the gut check, go back to your goals. Go back to your goals. Actually progress monitoring what you are doing in your business too, and really saying, this week, did I make any progress? Because if you are just going through the motions every week and don't ever make progress, that's really defeating. That, you know, so again, that helps you align. One of the things that we do anytime we're in an enrollment period for a service, and it's on my time blocker right now, is I write down the number of enrollments every single day. It is a constant reminder. What do I need to do today that is driving me towards the goal? Do I need to send more invites? Do I need to do more follow-ups? Like that daily gut check allows me to take off the rose-colored glasses and be like, everything's perfect, right? I'm posting, my social media is doing good, but is it making sales? So that gut check just really, I can't stress that. And so many people don't want to keep track of their goals. They just don't.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. So, and we always say it, tracking reveals trends, trends reveal the truth, truth creates the change.
It does.
Too. So and that applies whether you're talking about your business goals or your life priorities as well.
Yeah. So you gotta treat your business like a business.
Absolutely.
If you want it to pay you like one. Otherwise, it's just a hobby. And that's a hard truth. And maybe that's our truth bomb of the week, even though my other one is like not having, you know, I just don't. We do all these time blocking trackers and trainings. I'm kind of the queen of it. Actually, somebody on my social media said to me the other day, man, you really love planning. I can just see how much you love it. And I do. And sometimes I very gracefully talk about planning, but I want you to know that it's not perfect. You just need to know that. It is a messy practice. But I believe that you can't always have a perfectly balanced life, a perfectly planned life. Every single day I'm erasing and moving things around. My to-do list is longer than the hours that I have in the day currently. But I believe that being intentional about my choices. I believe that saying what is the most important thing to get done today. You know, it's important for me to be present with my family. It's important that I do shut it off and get sleep at night. And I'm always giving and taking. Sometimes I'm rocking my business and sometimes I'm pooping the bed in my personal life. Sometimes my personal life is on the top of the world and my business, I'm not hitting the goals. But it's just about kind of keeping these balls, you know, up in the air. And we're just trying to keep everything at just good, you know, and kind of balancing. And that's the most important thing as you go through this business experience, is just balancing the things that are important to you so you're achieving and you're feeling fulfilled in what you're doing.
All right. So we want you to know too that this is something that we talk about a lot on social media. It's something that we can touch the surface of when it comes to our podcast. But really, we do our deep work over in our Direct Sales Done Right Academy and our direct sales community. So if you are looking for a community, I just want to read a testimonial for you from a client of ours, Lisa, who said, I made top 5 sales in my rank. This was my goal for myself in my first year, and I did it! Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. Lisa, we are so proud of you.
Yes.
You guys, thank you so much for staying into this episode or tuning into this week's episode of the Direct Sales Done Right podcast. We'll see you next time.
All right. So if you loved today's episode, make sure you head over to wherever you listened to the episode today and leave us a rating and review. And also take a little screenshot and tag us on Chic Influencer. We'll feature you in our stories. Plus, we'd love to get your feedback and hear from our listeners.
Until next week, let's make chic happen.